All right, guys, back with another episode this week of Toronto Armchair Reactions. We've got Gauch, we've got Maz, we got myself. We're going to be changing things up this week a little bit. We realized that our last couple episodes, or actually our entire channel, has been a lot of ranting and
every single episode.
yeah,
Every episode.
and kind of time's gotten away from us a little bit. So we're going to try to keep our thoughts a little bit more condensed today. Kind of like PTI style, where we're going to give ourselves 10 minutes to talk about each topic. And then we're just going to move on. So it'll force us to kind of hopefully get to the heart of the issue quickly and not ramble on as we do as Leafs fans. I think it's pretty common for us to be rambling on about things because we're so frustrated all the time. But we'll try to keep it a little bit short this time. So we're going to get right to the point. Did I miss anything? I think that's kind of it, right?
No, that's it. We just try not to ramble, but we're still going to do that.
Yeah. We'll do it for 10 minutes though. So we can jump right into it. The first thing that we wanted to talk about today, and I'll hit the timer just so that we know, hopefully in the future, we can kind of get a little timer pop up on the screen. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, but I think the first thing we kind of wanted to talk about, just carrying over from last week, was just the Jason Spezza issue. Maz didn't get the chance to speak on it, so I'm going to let him kind of share his thoughts a little bit more than the two of us, because we kind of said a lot of it already. But just like the Spezza suspension, obviously came down 6 games. Then we had Ian Cole's hit the next night, which got no suspension at all.
No, he got
No
fined
review,
$5,000.
Yeah, you're right, $5,000. You're right. And then right before the Jason Spezza suspension ruling came down, we found out that Neil Pionk had a concussion, for which he missed 1 game beyond his 2-game suspension. And now he's back on the ice today as of December 13th. So I'll let Maz start us off, and we will kind of jump in here and there, but let's go for it.
Okay, to start, I'm going to say I'm not mad at that Spezza got suspended, because the hit, you knew it was a retaliatory hit, and I knew a suspension was coming, whether he was a Leaf or not, regardless of what happened. You knew why he was doing it, and you knew it was going to be a suspension. And I'm fine that he got suspended. The reason that I'm pissed is A, Pionk got 2 games. B, 12 minutes before the hearing, he has a concussion. C, which happened today, he's good to go after his suspension's over. D, he got more games than the guy who bit Brady Tkachuk's hand. He went out of his way to eat somebody, and he got 5 games. Spezza stuck up for his rookie and got 6. Then the next the next day, Ian Cole goes for a knee-on-knee hit and gets $5,000 and says, yeah, that's okay.
I also just want to point out Spezza has never had any issues with the
In 19 years of his career, he has never had an incident, and he automatically gets 6 games. So this is point F. Brad Marchand has been there 9 times, and he's never gotten more than 5 games. I don't understand. Like, thing is, everyone says the player safety department isn't consistent. They're consistent. They're consistently inconsistent. I never know what to expect. It's a gamble. It's not even a coin flip. You're just playing some random game. They just pick out of a deck whatever the number says. That's how many games you get. I don't know what's happening there anyways. But again, I hate this team.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think that the biggest issue, and you touched on it for a bit, is just the inconsistency with how they handle everything, right? I think there's no, unfortunately, and I think people have talked about this, there's no like set rules. Like, it's almost as if they want to treat every case as an individual case, which, if the sound of it is nice, but ultimately that's not how it works, right? You need to be able to set precedent, and then you need to be able to follow that precedent when things similar to that happen. Obviously there are unique cases, but most of the time there needs to be something that you say, this is what this is similar to, or it's either a little bit more or a little bit less severe. We're going to give you around this punishment, right? If you look at anything that happens in this league, it's like everything is treated like an individual incident. And the thing that bothers me the most, and you just brought it up, Miles, like someone like Brad Marchand have had like 30 dirty plays in his career, right? Probably more. And for me to say, oh, he's never been suspended in the last 3 years, so he's not a repeat offender. Like, Yes, he is. Like I can objectively go and look at every dirty play that Marchando's been a part of and use that to make my judgment. That's how I would do it in any other field. You don't just ignore something because he wasn't suspended for it or he didn't get a penalty for it or whatever, right? He has done these things. Everyone knows he's done these things. Same with Tom Wilson. Same with,
I just wanted to just jump in for Tom Wilson. Like Tom
Yeah.
Wilson took a guy and just slammed him in to the ice with no helmet on, got nothing. But
and if someone does something, just because they don't get suspended doesn't mean that you can't look at them as a repeat offender. Like he did something disgusting and despicable, and that's why ultimately the entire player safety department needs to be uprooted, and it needs to be an independent, like, third party. It can't no longer be ex-enforcers that are, part of the game, part of keeping the culture of the game around, because the issue with that is these guys are buddies with, a bunch of these guys. So it's like, it's just so ridiculous to me because, I could go on about this for hours, but we're trying to keep ourselves concise. And I know, Gauch, it looks like it's.
Well, I just want to say one thing. You can't have a guy who is in charge of the DoPS who also has a brand called the Violent Gentleman. Like you just can't. Like how do those things coexist? Yeah. No, how does that coexist? You can't. Like I get that's just a brand and it's on its own. That's a great brand. Like it's great branding from a marketing perspective, great name. But those two things don't go, right? Like it just can't work together. Yeah. But the NHL with its inconsistency keeps shooting itself in the foot. Again, it's getting annoying that we have to keep prefacing every statement that we make about Spezza by saying we think that he deserved to get suspension, because we know everyone's going to jump on us because apparently we're Leafs fans and we're not allowed to have any fucking opinions.
Exactly.
But the problem though is that this wouldn't be happening, or maybe would, but it's likely not happening to certain other teams. Yeah. And the other thing is, it's again, even if it did or it didn't, it's just wildly inconsistent. Like how many players have done this?
None of this happens. We don't have this conversation if they call the rule book during the game.
Okay, and then my question is, how
doesn't miss it? If he doesn't miss that, gives Pionk a misconduct and kicks him out of the game, Spezza doesn't go for that knee. There's no more retaliation. No one's jumping on each other. Wayne Simmons isn't running around like a homing missile, hitting every Winnipeg player he can see. Everything comes down to the league and how they treat officials and how they treat their players.
Yeah.
You say a single thing about an official, you're fined $25,000. You knee someone, the maximum is $5,000.
Yeah.
Who cares about the players as long as you don't criticize the officials for not calling the game?
Yeah, and this is what we were talking about last week, right? It's this false sense of parity that's being like pushed by the league, where we create parity by letting teams get away with things that are blatantly against the rules, and the next night, because the game is maybe a little bit more competitive, or maybe because a ref feels a certain way about a certain team, all of a sudden that same thing that happened the day before is a 5 in a game misconduct. Like Ian Cole did get 5 in a game, right? So it's to me, it's just the inconsistency is so ridiculous, and it comes back to the league wanting to push this parity that doesn't exist. Like realistically, if the rules were called, there would be 3 or 4 or 5 teams that destroyed the rest of the league. And unfortunately, because we want to create parity, this is the only way the NHL can influence that parity continuing to exist, because even with their attempt at a hard cap, there are some teams that are just significantly better than the rest. And what they need to do in order to kind of keep things, the way they want them to be, where even the worst teams in the league are competitive, quote unquote, this is how they do it, is they mandate these kinds of calls and they mandate these kinds of safety rulings, which again, we're going to say this one more time, Jason Spezza should have been suspended for that hit. But at the same time, all we're asking for as Leafs fans, and I think fans around the league, is just consistency.
Like if Brendan Lemieux got like 10, 15 games and they use that as a standard and then Spezza gets 6, okay, fine. You're going to suspend someone 15 games for that. You can suspend Spezza for 6. But the next time I see some shit like that, it better be 5 or 6 games. It can't be a 1-game suspension.
Kucherov did the exact same thing in the playoffs a couple of years ago and got 1 game. So please, show me the precedent and then tell me. I would love a video that says this is a similar incident. This is how many games this guy got, and that's what we're using to base this decision.
You expect you're going to get clarity
here's what I find funny about that though is Kucherov got the 1, but they've even it's an open secret that playoff games are treated
Of
as
course.
multiple regular season
Of course,
games, right?
yeah.
So like one playoff game is the equivalent of like 3 regular season games or
Yeah.
whatever the shit is, right? But what that makes it even more interesting, because now I'm gonna go way back to fucking Nas.
Yeah.
Remember, Kadri got how many games? What was that equivalent
Rest of
to?
the
Like that was a
series.
10. That was a 10 game suspension
Yeah.
equivalent. Like what was that, right? Like
And the
it's
thing
just
with that one was they didn't even suspend Nas for like a certain number of games.
It was
They
just
said
rest of the series.
however long that might be. It could be 1 game, it could be 4 games. It didn't matter. Like, when has that ever happened before? It's almost like these dudes sit around in their office, like you said, Mos, and literally just do whatever they want to do. And it's like, I'm gonna make up this.
The joke is the wheel, right?
Yeah. It's unreal, man. It's unreal. And like,
but to be fair, honestly, it's every sport. Like, I don't know if you guys watched the Bills-Bucks game Sunday night.
Or if you watched F1, because all of a sudden.
Or that was my next point. If you watched F1, it's just
like,
let's make up a rule so this is competitive. Oh, shit.
How much time do we have left on this Spencer thing?
We've got 50 seconds.
Okay. We got 50 seconds. Okay, so let's just finish that up and then we'll give 1 minute to the F1 stuff. Fucking that was bullshit. They need to fire whatever his violent gentleman
George
face is
Peros.
and fuck that guy. Yeah.
I until there's a third party that does not belong to any NHL affiliated groups dealing with these like safety issues, this is not going to be resolved. It just
until Gary Bettman's gone,
yeah,
this is not going to be resolved.
Even when Brendan Shanahan did this, and like obviously Shanahan is very different from Peros, this inconsistency still existed because the league mandates these issues as parity. Like, that's how they get their parity. So it's just not going to ever change until we get new leadership. And apparently Gary Bettman's not going anywhere. So I think
that's
a whole different topic, but
yep.
All right, let's just quickly talk about the F1 stuff. Like, what the fuck, bro? I mean, I don't like. I've said this openly. Like, I don't have a horse in this. I actually just want to see a good Drive to Survive season because that shit is lit. But my God, man,
literally.
How do you explain it? But I do have one response to like some of the people complaining about it. But dude, like that was. You can't say let him race, but one guy's on basically bald tires and the other guy's fresh. Like, that's not let him race. That's like, hey, here's a gun to one guy, and hey, here's a toy knife. Now face off.
It's not even that though. The guy with the toy knife was about to win when they're like, here's a made up rule, go. Wait, what?
The only thing about that though is this has happened earlier in the season though. Like this exact scenario.
When you do it, you have to let every driver do it. They let 5 out of 8 do it just so Max could be one of them. And once they did it, they called it off. Said, no, everyone else can do it.
Yes, it's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, and it's also it seems like Leaf Twitter though is very pro Max Verstappen, and that's very
a lot of people are very anti Lewis Hamilton.
You know what? Like, that just makes me a little bit more pro Lewis. Like, I also just like.
You want to guess why?
How even keel he is? Yeah, I mean, it's very obvious, but whatever. I actually like Lewis because he's super even keel. Like, do you see his press conferences? His voice is like this always
the whole way through.
And it's like he could have just ripped like an epic run off, or he just lost the way he did, and he's just like talking at this tone, and like, you know, like, I'm just gonna.
He lost the way he did, but think about it. He just won that 7 years in a row. It was just gonna be 8 in a row.
But you know what though? Like, I think him losing this like probably reignites the fire for next year to be like, well, I'm not done yet, right? But anyhow, that was just a quick aside.
Yeah, and well, I mean, the next thing we're talking about is also going to be a heated discussion, but I think we're all kind of on the same boat about it. We're going to talk a little bit about Justin Holl and kind of what's been going on with our number 4 defenseman. I think we should preface this by saying all 3 of us were in the camp of DoPS made the right decision by protecting Holl over McCann.
I'm still in the camp because in the moment, yes.
Yeah. I'm going to do 1 more minute. I just need to say one thing before you guys get into the Holl stuff. You guys take over the Holl stuff.
Okay.
Do you guys notice though? Look at what F1 did. F1 actually did have a slowing viewership, right? About 5 years ago. Drive to Survive came out. They literally allowed all the access in the world, their viewership has gone fucking through the roof.
Yeah.
And people like us, people like me, I've never watched.
I've never watched till this year.
Never.
And,
in my
and
life.
then I started watching last year, but like it was only because of Drive to Survive.
Yeah.
Like, because I started watching Drive to Survive basically last year, right?
Yeah.
And so since that, like it's crazy. And like the way they boosted that, and the fact that the NHL looks at the equivalent, basically the Amazon Prime series, where that is the closest thing to being an equivalent of following a team around a league around, as, oh, we got to keep this far away from us, and like this kind of access is bad, and like we don't want to do it, and there's only a few teams.
Well, yeah, there's people on fucking national TV saying the Trevor Zegras assist was bad. So when you have that kind of shit still going, no shit, you're not going to grow the sport.
And it's perplexing, because there's literally a prime example of a league that took its product and made it better with access. And now people of all ages, there's like 15-year-olds talking about F1 again. What the fuck?
Well, at the same time, that was all great, but they wanted viewership so bad that they're fixing their races like the last one.
Hey man, guess what?
The NHL can't even do that properly. Games too, then
the NHL can't even do that properly. The NHL, if they fixed it, it would be Arizona with their fucking bankruptcy in the finals. Like, fuck.
We're gonna get absolutely pulled aside here, but before we get to Justin Holl, I'm gonna wrap this up.
Nice.
If you want everybody to look at how bad the NHL is and how bad like their approach to media is, I read something the other day that just kind of made me sick to my stomach. So we can talk about the NHL. We can do a separate episode just on the problems that the NHL has. But like there was literally a quote that came out of the Board of Governors meeting saying that they don't want to give the big media as much access to their teams because of how the media handled the Kyle Beach situation. And if that is the response of these governors and these presidents and general managers in our league, then to limit media access so things like this don't get dealt with, that tells you all you need to know about the leadership of this sport and why why it's going like torpedoing, because they want to keep the sport. And I got into a huge thing with some dude on Twitter about this the other day, but the NHL wants to stay a white man sport. It wants to do rich white man sport. It wants to stay there, and it always will. And they're going to do everything that they can to prevent it from going in any other direction. So it's just sickening. But that tells you all you need to know about the NHL. And like I said, we'll do a separate episode just talking about these social issues that we have to deal with as fans of the sport. But let's move on to Justin Holl. I don't know where to even start. He's been in a word awful this year.
That's being nice.
I think that as Leafs fans, I'm going to preface it with just saying this quickly. There's a huge tendency in our fan base to look back on a decision that makes sense at the time and be like, this was the worst thing that Kyle ever did. And there was definitely people that were like, why is this happening? Why are we not protecting McCann? But, similarly to the Naz trade, like at the time, everybody thought it made sense. At least most people did. We were all upset about it, but most people thought it made sense. And somehow, like 2-3 years later, it's looked at as the worst trade of Kyle Dubas' entire tenure. Sure, it maybe turned out that way. I think Kerfoot is a solid piece, and Barry was never going to stay here. He didn't have a great time here. But at the same time, at the moment, what were we crying out for? A defenseman and a center that could replace Naz on the third line. And that's what we got. So I think looking back and being
just
like
a player that won't get suspended every playoff round.
Yeah, like at the time it made sense, but like looking back on it, obviously people are fuming. And it's the same thing with this whole thing. I think for us, like the three of us continue to believe that at the time Kyle did the right thing. We didn't have a fourth defenseman. We didn't know what Sandin was going to turn into. Liljegren was a huge question mark. That was the decision that he made, and he stuck with it. And I think that he for the team that we had, he made the right call.
Well, look at it. Justin Holl was a right-handed defenseman on $2 million.
Yeah,
we had problems trying to get fucking right-handed defensemen.
Yeah,
he was a cost-controlled defenseman in a market where people were getting nuts of money last season.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
And the previous year, he was serviceable. He was a perfect 4-5 D man. Like,
Yep.
there's nothing more you could have asked from him last year.
Yeah.
This
He was-
year, obviously, everything went to shit. But
you guys can jump into like this part, but like the only difference I see this year versus last year is the decision making is just cratered. It's
I
not
don't
like
know.
it's not a physical
Yeah.
problem, it's a mental thing, right?
He just
Every
steps
decision
slow.
he's making is completely
like
completely off.
a 2-on-2, instead of taking his man, he's going towards the guy that's
I have
taking
no idea what
and
he's doing.
it leaves the lane wide open for the winger. And it just
Yeah.
makes no sense
Well,
what he's doing.
There's so many plays where he has the puck in his own zone with no pressure, and he just like throws it up the boards to the other team. Like it happens every game, and I've defended Holl a lot. I thought he had a great first couple of games. I think people forget first couple of games of the season he looked really good. And I was all over Twitter like saying like, where are all you Holl haters now? You know, like that was me because I've defended this guy for years, and I genuinely want him to succeed. And I think that sometimes gets lost. Like I think as Leafs fans, we want all of the players on our team to succeed. But when they're performing like this, like he is the biggest liability on this team right now, and we have a rookie defenseman that is literally like, Christian Rubens, Timothy Liljegren, every defenseman we've played this year has looked better than Justin Holl. Like, and it's not close.
The issue was like, so at the beginning of the season, and even when 10, 15 games in, I was like, I found myself repeating like, Muzzin has to be hurt, right? Like this, because like defensemen, especially the type of defenseman that Muzzin is, he doesn't rely on speed. He relies on good decisions, sound physical play, positioning. Like he's not a guy. That's not the archetype and the physical. Like that's not the defenseman that falls off a cliff. That's a defenseman that's maybe becomes lesser. I mean, he can become a lesser version of himself, but he's not going to be falling off a cliff. But he felt like. Yeah, like he felt like, but Muzzin felt like this year fell off a cliff for a bit, and you were like, yo, what the fuck? And then all of a sudden, Muzzin and Holl got split up, and Muzzin didn't look so bad, and I was like, and then all of a sudden, like whoever was with Holl started looking really, really bad.
Kind of hard to swim with a 35-pound anchor on your. And
you just like again, like I really like Holl, especially at his price point, like $2 million. Like that's for him, like that's it means it's the right deal. It's the right defenseman. It's just I don't know what I don't know if it's snowballing where he's starting to overthink things and all that stuff, or he's gotten into his own head about the pressure coming up behind him because there is pressure coming up behind him because Sandin and Liljegren are fucking fire.
I don't like that excuse because like if that's
it's not an excuse.
You should be playing to prove, hey, these kids aren't better than me.
No, it's not an excuse. There are just some people who can and can't. Some people who can't handle that. Right?
At this point, it's just gotten unforgivable. Because think about the last 7 or 8 goals against, just total goals against. How many of them was Holl directly responsible for?
7.5.
Exactly 7.5. The other half was Willie messing up as well. But aside from that, it was like,
dude, see the field day everybody had with Willie messing up like one time? Like, my God, it's like everybody came in their pants. Like,
fuck out of here. Best contract in the league.
Willie is over a point a game at
I know
$6.5 million.
But so everybody came in their pants the minute he like had a turnover. They were like, oh my God, look at him.
But with Justin Holl, all you do now is you just sit until Sandin comes back because you're not going to get rid of him. He's not going to get waived until Sandin comes back.
Yeah.
And at the trade deadline, this is probably our next conversation, so we'll get into it later. Then you think about what you do.
Yeah, I liked Rubens actually. I thought he was solid in the games he didn't play with Justin Holl. And I'd like to I would like to see him get more of a look. It's kind of a shame that he got sent down because he played one game with Justin Holl. But I think the Leafs are going to give some guys a look while Sandin is out, and I'm okay with that. If they're going to give them a look, I don't know if they should be playing with Holl because I don't know who's going to be able to like look good beside him right now. He is really, really struggling. And I think that, something needs to be done because I think Kyle sees it. I think everybody sees it. I think you saw Matthew's frustration the first time he got demoted to the third pair and then got scratched. The team and I think management and the coaching staff are losing faith in Justin Holl, and as a fan base, I think we're kind of right there as well, where it's he's got to turn it around drastically and very, very quickly if he wants to keep his spot on this team.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else to talk about.
Yeah,
with
we can
him
kind of
other
just
than, like,
we can transition. Just like the last thing we wanted to talk about today was just following up on that point. Then what do we need to do between now? Like a bunch of people have talked about it, right? Like Dangle talked about it. A bunch of media guys are talking about it. What do we need to
start
do?
the next video? You want to restart this so that you can record it properly? Because it's going to cut off in 8.5 minutes.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so to stop this, to end recording.
Oh, I just stopped myself. Whoops. Yeah, so I think that transitions really well into our next topic, which I think a lot of people have been talking about. I heard Dangle talking about it. A bunch of the media guys have been talking about it. Is, we're very likely going to have to play one of Florida or Tampa in the first round. And Justin Holl on our second pair is not going to get that done. So, if we want to make it out of the first round, we got to make some changes. I think the answer is obvious in terms of what we need to do at the deadline is get another top 4D. But realistically, what do you guys think our options are? Who would you be targeting? What do we do at the deadline to really like give ourselves a shot at getting out of the first couple rounds? Because, we know what's going to happen in this fan base if we lose this year, especially in the first round.
Not even the fan base. I think the team.
Yeah.
There will be huge changes.
Which is unfortunate,
and
it's unfortunate because it goes back to what we were talking about last year. Like, why are we playing Florida or Tampa in the first round? Why are two of the 5 best teams in the league matching up in the first round of the playoffs, and then again in the second round of the playoffs? Now they're matching up with another one of the top 5 teams in the league. So within the first 2 rounds, you've gotten rid of 2 of the top 5 teams in the NHL. It's just it's just broken. It's just so
apparently they don't know how to do just top 8. It's not like the other major sport that everyone shares an arena with does it, like basketball. 1 to 8. Whoever 1 to 8 is, that's it. And then see them 1 versus 8, 2 versus. It's not that hard. It's not rocket science. But this league, everything is fucking rocket science. But different topic. What can the Leafs do better?
Yes, let's get to it. Ghost, do you want to give your thoughts first?
Man, like, I mean, first of all, like the frustration, I've already kind of expressed my frustration with the playoff format. Like, it just doesn't make sense there's going to be 3 110-point teams, and there are going to be 1, 2, 3 in the same division, and then 2 of them are
and they face each other in the first 2 rounds.
Like, it makes no sense, right? Like, you literally eliminate the top 3 teams within 2 rounds. It makes absolutely no sense. Yes, like these things can be cyclical. Like, this kind of stuff happened to Washington before, but like the Atlantic is always going to be some sort of power because someone's always going to have money and someone's always going to be doing well, because it just happened to be that Florida and Tampa is doing well right now, because when they're not, we all know that Boston and Montreal and Detroit, everybody will be back, right? Like, the bottom feeders will be back to not being
a shit show for a decade.
That team is still going to get worse before it gets better. It doesn't. Again, we could have an entire episode on so many things.
Sorry, if you think Buffalo's ever going to get better, that's funny. Michael Pekka is not coming to save them. The 90s rule book isn't either. Anyhow. No, legitimately, like, it just makes no sense, but it's the way this league is. They have some ass backwards thought process of how this should work, so it's going to continue to be that way. In terms of how they improve, though, like, I mean, now we need a right-handed defenseman, right? Like, I didn't think we needed one. I thought we needed a top 6 forward just for depth. Like, I just wanted to round it out. Like, I like who we have, honestly. Like, I like the balance that we have right now, but like, injuries happen, and like, just another forward that could fit into the top 6 but can bump down in a checking role would be perfect. But I think now I prioritize that right-handed defenseman, just because like our defense has actually been playing decently, and I don't want that to become a weakness again. Like, if we have another solid right-handed defenseman, we have the Sandin pair when he's back. We have our top pair going, like Morgan paired, like Morgan's playing like Morgan again. Morgan from like 2 years ago again. Like, that's fucking great. And then we have Campbell in the back. Like, now we have a playoff ready defensive-minded team. Do you know what I'm saying? Like now, all of
Yeah.
a sudden, our team can play that game. We can defend. Scoring, like realistically, you are not stopping Austin Matthews that many times. Like the post can only happen so many times, and his wrist, like I mean, it looks like it's bending. Like you're like puck luck goes both ways, right? Like he had some horrible luck in terms of throwing it and hitting every crossbar on the planet last year, and then hitting Carey Price when he wasn't hitting those crossbars. Shit happens. It's not going to happen to Austin Matthews again. Like, let's just be honest. That man's a gamer, so you're not stopping him. I'm not worried about our scores. The only guy I'm pseudo worried about is Marner. But like, let's see how he does. I do actually have one more topic we should cover after this one, by the way. But yeah, what do you guys think? How do we improve the team?
Before the season started, I was going to say you look at California because there were so many good options there just for what the Leafs could use to get better, especially Anaheim. I look at Lindholm and Raquel. That's a left winger and a right shot, right-handed D that would have been perfect for this team. Obviously, with a fuckload of retention, but even with San Jose, you would have looked at Hurdle. He's going into UFA. It would have been an easy 1 year UFA. Left winger, someone goes down, he can also play center. But the unfortunate situation of the league right now is Anaheim and San Jose are both playing phenomenal hockey. So they're not moving any of their
Shout out Troy Terry.
Yeah, fuck
He was carrying me in fantasy, dude.
Yeah,
So
fuck off. I'm not talking about that topic today.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think you're right. I think that's a tricky thing. Is that's where my thought process was too early on in the season. Like you look at a guy, like Josh Manson. You look at Raquel. Like there's options on Anaheim, and going into the season, I thought they were going to be a bottom feeder. But clearly, we are not great evaluators of talent. We also probably, I think most people in the league didn't probably expect Zegras to be as incredible
It's not
as
just
he
Zegras.
is.
It's that whole team looks so structured.
Yeah.
They look phenomenal.
Ryan Getzlaf looks like Ryan Getzlaf again. He's playing with.
Who saw that
Getzlaf-
coming? The dude's
Yeah.
playing at like a point per game, just an apple every day. Like,
Yeah.
who saw that coming? Nobody would have guessed that's coming.
Yeah. No, they've been really, really good, man. And Kevin Shattenkirk's having the best season of his career. It's just everything going right for them. Can they sustain it? I don't know. It still remains to be seen.
I
I think they will, but I think that the good thing for us, and I think that this is where it comes in, is if any of those teams start to falter, you start looking, right? Like I think you've got guys on LA like Iafallo or Kempe that you can maybe target as that top six option, and then we need a defenseman. I think we need a top six forward. And I think we need a second.
think we need a top six left winger specifically.
Yeah,
I don't think they need any more centers. Right winger, you have Willie and Mitch. You don't need any more top six right wingers. You need a top six left winger that's most likely going to be a power forward that gives you an element that you don't already have.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to the playoffs, sometimes fucking Baghead Twitter is right. You need that grit. You need that person that's going to just not give a fucking bulldoze people.
Yeah.
But you want someone with skill.
Yeah.
So it's going to be impossible to find it because that's what I was just looking at my phone. I'm looking at the bottom of the league, and I want nobody from Arizona, Montreal, Ottawa, Islanders, Sabres. I want none of that shit. So
You don't want Cole Caulfield?
I'd only trade Willie, Matthews, and Marner, all three for one. But aside from that, no, because he's just a god. We're not talking about the Habs. That's another 15-minute topic that I could have so much fun with. Fucking.
I think we do this show every week. If we ever don't have enough topics, we've got a running list of things we can talk about.
Oh, Buffalo, Islanders, I would have so much fucking fun with because I do it after every fucking game. Took only like 7 holes to finally win at their home arena.
Yeah.
But if you're the Leafs, I think the Flyers, they look like a shit show. And I think everyone expected them to be a shit show, except,
Who from the Flyers would you target?
I take Yandel.
You take who?
Yandel. He's on a 1-year contract. He's incredibly cheap. He gives you your power play 2 option because you're going to put Riley on 1. And then if Sandin's healthy at the time or if he gets injured again, depends. But you can run 2 defensemen on your power play for your second power play because Kasha should not be leaving PP1.
Yeah.
Mitch.
Okay, all right. This actually okay. Here, you know what? This leads into the topic I wanted to talk about last. So, you wanna jump a new timer?
I was
You have time?
I'll just throw a new timer up there. We had 2 minutes
Okay.
left anyways, so just go for it.
Okay, cool. So here's my question. I talked about this a little bit on Twitter as well. The power play has looked incredible for the last 5 games. The power play looking incredible has happened to coincide with a certain injury. Okay. Now, here's my question. When Mitch returns, right? Would you not put him on PP2 and have him anchor that power play? Completely do not let him touch this power play that's working right now. Because the one thing I noticed about this power play, and something I was complaining about earlier in the season, was there was no fluidity earlier in the season. That it was very robotic. It was very methodical, but not in a good way. Everyone knew where everything was going. Even when they had switched things up, it was just very obvious what was happening, and nothing was fluid. Now everything is fluid. They move, the puck moves. Everyone seems to go to where there's an opening, and the puck goes in. Like they're like, it's ridiculous.
It's the trust that's there now, because when you look at it before, it was. No one will ever say it. Matthews didn't trust passing it back to Marner to shoot. It was going to go to Matthews. He was going to move heaven and earth to shoot that puck and try to score. Now you have Matthews. On the other side, you have Nylander, who has not as good a shot, but
Nylander was on that power play too, right? With Marner.
I'm going to keep going. You have Kasha, who when he's healthy could easily be a 25, 30 goal scorer. John Tavares, when, he's always a net front presence, but if they have to move around and, he has to go to the left or right side, you're not scared that John Tavares can't shoot, because he can shoot.
And and he scored.
Well, that's another point. So like, you see how you said Tavares, especially when Marner's on the ice, Tavares is the only net front presence. But when Kasha has been on the ice, they rotate. Like Tavares has the ability to leave that post and go somewhere else to gather the puck, because he knows Kasha will rotate in there, right? And so that also adds an element where now again, that's another guy with a shot that can rotate into a shooting slot, right? And so it just seems more fluid, that like I wouldn't want to break this up and then put Marner back in to force it. Why not give Marner Spezza, his own power play? This is yours. You get a minute. It's just you. You get Spezza. You survey. You fucking do this whatever way you want. We load up shooters on one. We give the best passer we have on the team put him on the other and set him up with everybody else and see what works. Right? Like,
but you know what's wild, guys, is like, yes, Kasha adds a lot to that unit, but before Spezza got suspended, it's not like our power play was bad because he was on that first unit. The thing that's different was
Spezza was a shooting threat.
Yeah. What have we always talked about? What's the problem with our power play? It's a funnel to Austin Matthews. Everything, as long as Mitch Marner is on that unit, the puck goes to Mitch Marner, and ultimately the way he runs a power play is to funnel it to Austin Matthews. And everybody's goal on that whole unit is to funnel the puck to Austin Matthews. And that kind of power play is only successful if you have Alexander Ovechkin on your team, because that is the only team in the league where everybody knows what they're going to do, and it doesn't matter because that dude is.
But I don't understand how Ovechkin gets open so often. Like every goal I see,
it's not even like
so
open.
Fucking good at opening him up.
Sometimes he's not even open. It's just there's two guys in front, but the dude just somehow gets it.
No, but there's a lot of plays where he opens up though. It's crazy how much he get open.
I think
that's where Austin's doing even better now. But this power play you see is Austin Matthews is getting lost again.
Yeah,
nobody notices where he is.
Yeah, we talked about that, right? Like that even Willie being on that unit allows Austin Matthews to get lost a little bit, and why playing with Willie allows Austin Matthews to get lost is that's when he's most dangerous. The reason Ovechkin can get lost on that unit is you've got 4 guys playing the exact opposite side from the ice of him, like everyone's below the goal line or something, and Ovechkin's.
Well, look at their PP1. It's Kuznetsov, Oshie. When Backstrom's right? And John Carlson. So you're going to get lost.
So it's just like ultimately it wasn't working because I don't think Austin's shot is the same as Ovechkin's in the sense that it's not a pure, like, absolute one-time bomb, right? Like, he needs to load up a little bit. And in order for him to do that, he needs to be lost. And it doesn't work when it's being funneled to him. So a good coach, which, I mean, shout out Manny Malhotra, didn't figure this out for some reason, it wasn't working. And when has our power play been most effective this year? It's as soon as you load up the unit with just weapons. Everybody can do something different. Everybody is rotational, like everyone's moving around. No one's playing the same role over and over again. Austin is not the go-to de facto. The puck is always going to this guy no matter what. Or when Mitch is on the unit with Austin and Willie, it's feed the puck to Mitch. He'll either decide to go to Willie or he'll decide to go to Austin, and that's it, right? So it's not predictable anymore, and that's why I think it's so successful. Is there's no way you can just be like, I'm going to put 2 guys on Matthews and we'll just like live with the consequences, because there's too many guys on that unit that can hurt you now, whether that's Spezza, whether that's Kasha. You do what you need to do to make sure that both units are balanced, but I totally agree with you guys that Mitch should run his own unit. Put Willie on the second unit. I don't care. Like, put
No,
Mitch
I don't
Willie
want.
on
I don't know.
I
Don't touch
would
this
be
first
fine.
unit at all.
I would be fine. I don't want to touch it, but eventually you're gonna have to, right? Because Spezza comes back. Like, maybe do you move Kasha off it? Do you move Spezza off it? Like, someone's gonna have to move off the unit because you can't
I
put six
keep
guys
it
up there.
exactly the same.
No,
But
I
you can't.
guarantee you, any money in the world, the second Marner comes back, Kasha's
He's
going
the
back to
first.
PP2 and Marner's
No,
PP1.
for sure. But I'm saying, like, that's why I asked the question, right? Like, I'm saying if
We
everybody's
can talk
healthy,
about it, but we all know what's going to happen. It's
They can't put Mitch Marner on the second power play unit. It's going to be too big of a headline. Although it would probably be better for him because
he gets to be the center focus for a whole minute.
Yeah, and he gets to play
every tool to play with.
PK, right? Like, it's you don't need
that's
to do
that's
everything.
the other thing I was gonna say. Like, he plays PK as well. Like
And he's a phenomenal penalty killer. Like, he doesn't get enough credit for how good a defensive forward he is,
great
and how good a penalty killer he is. And we've missed him more in that area than we have
than the
offensively, right? Even offensively,
absolutely.
like, our offense has been solid. It's defensively we look like a mess, mostly because of Justin Holl, but also because we're missing Mitch Marner. You know, like, I think Mitch adds so much to this team defensively. He's such a good, like, he I think the Leafs have the top 3 takeaway guys in the NHL. It's Austin, Willie, and Mitch. Like,
he doesn't get enough credit for being the PK specialist that he is.
Yeah, and so, like, take that on and then run your own power play unit. I have no issues with the power play unit that we had. Like, bring Spezza back on. That doesn't work. You can swap out Kasha, but, like, I think the thing that having Spezza on that unit does is it gives you 3 shooting starts. Right now, you got 3 guys who can laser the puck from anywhere, and then with Kasha, like you said, Miles, you got people that can rotate in and around and move around, and it makes it hard to predict. So, like, I'm fine with either of those units being the first unit. If you want to give Mitch a shooter, you can put Spezza on the second unit and run the first unit exactly how it is right now. Yeah. Will they do that? I hope so, because our power play hasn't been this good in years, and it should be, you know.
This is exactly what it should be.
Yeah.
Like, I think the last stat I saw was like 12 power play goals in the last 15, 16 periods. Some stupid shit like that. Like,
well, they've gotten the power play numbers now is like the best they've had in like 25 years now, right?
Yeah.
Just because
when you have the talent you have, this is what it like last year should not have happened. There is no way, even if you run a simulation on an NHL game, there is no way that power play is that bad. That was legendarily bad, like Leaf legendarily bad.
Yeah, and a lot of it fell to a lack of adjustment. And this year we weren't making a ton of adjustments. We were forced into adjustments, and this is the best this power play has looked in a long time. And it's nuts. I don't disagree with our coaching staff on a lot of things. I was hell-bent on getting rid of Manny Malhotra last year. That was the one big issue I had. But most of the time, I feel like I'm pretty, level-headed. And I trust Keith's decision-making because, especially after watching the documentary, I know that guy knows this team better than most of us do. And he knows what buttons to press. He knows who to push and how to push them. When it comes to this power play, if Mitch Marner goes back onto the first unit, when he comes back and we start to go back to that like repetitive, predictable Austin Matthews funnel power play and start to go 1 for 20 at a time, I'm going to be really, really upset.
Yeah, especially like with the way Matthews is heating up right now too. Like I don't want to put anything in the way. Like just let him go on. He's about like remember I told you he's about to go on a fucking heater.
Yeah.
Dude's about to go on it's like he gave Draisaitl a head start. Everyone all of a sudden forgot that he was the fucking Rocket Richard winner from last year. I'm like, do you guys?
Yeah, like, literally, like who was it? I think it was. Who's talking about this? It was actually MJ. It was Mike Johnson, and I respect Mike Johnson a lot. But even he was saying, we've run out of time, but I'm gonna quickly wrap this up. Even he was saying that he thinks that Austin Matthews will have the most goals from like this point in time till the end of the season, but he doesn't know if he can catch Draisaitl with the lead that he has. And the second I saw that, I was like, I love you, MJ, but honest to God, Austin Matthews gave these guys a head start because he wanted to make it fun. And I'm so excited to see what this guy does. He doesn't have that curse of not being able to score the third goal anymore because he's got 3 hat tricks finally.
It's the stash, man. He got rid of the
he's
stash
in the top. He's all of a sudden he's like in the top 4. Like he went from like what I was looking for, and I was gonna do this like the other day, but I let it go. I was gonna go find all the fucking tweets from the beginning of the season where like, and this is honestly really bad timing because what just happened to Hyman, but all the comments of Hyman has more goals than Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander combined. And I was just like, seriously, guys, it's like a few games into the fucking season.
Wait, what happened to
Hyman? He's hurt.
Oh, I think it's like day to day or week to week.
No, they're saying right now it's probably it looks like it's gonna be a few weeks, but that dude might have messed up his ACL MCL.
Oh,
so no. Yeah, like he plays that game that like he's on that edge, right? So
yeah.
like, it's tough to watch. I'm glad he got paid. So like I'm glad either which way he's getting paid. So I'm happy about that. Don't want him to be too hurt. So like that was the best case scenario for all Toronto fans. We wanted Hyman to get paid,
I remember those tweets you're talking about where it's like Hyman has more goals than XX and X.
Fuck you guys. And I was just like, you guys serious right now? And then like all the slander, like every comment would be like, oh, like Matthews getting this much and only having this much goals. And I was like, do you guys really think the Rocket Richard winner from last season is falling off a cliff? Give him like a few games.
Sidney Crosby had the same surgery. And even right now, he has 15 points. But I know how many points he has because I watch it every day. But even Sidney Crosby isn't playing like Sidney Crosby because he had the same wrist surgery. But Austin Matthews, you gave him that first 15, 20 games to like get used to it again. And now look at him. He doesn't miss.
Yeah.
Dudes.
I think there's a stat he had like an 83-mile-per-hour wrist shot the other day.
Yeah, I saw that shot. It was like nuts. And he was at a standstill, dude. Yeah, like that shot was from a standstill, no momentum. Like, Jesus Christ.
He's the best player I've ever seen wear a Leafs jersey.
Yeah, it's not even close. And we're just lucky to have him. And he's, we've only got a couple years left, so we should make the most of it.
Yeah, 30 months until he goes to Arizona.
I mean, yeah, it's true.
He can probably pay their bills.
I was gonna say he may need to own the team.
Yeah.
So he's gonna be paying himself. So yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, that's it for this week. I think we had a pretty solid show. Let us know what you guys think about this timer thing. I thought it worked pretty well. We're hoping to have some of you guys on in the future. So shoot us a DM. And hopefully we can get some more people on here because we'd love to chat with you guys. As much fun as it is, the 3 of us, we created this channel to get more people from Leafs Twitter to have a voice, to get to chat with one another. So feel free to shoot us a DM if you want to jump on next week, and we'll check you then. Hopefully the Leafs have a couple wins by then. We're not playing Calgary because they're in COVID protocol. So Edmonton and Vancouver this week. I think the Leafs win both. But we'll check in next week and talk about how that went. But until then, this is Reza for Gauch and Maz. Take it easy, friends.
Peace.